Futures Radio Show, sponsored by CME Group, the world's leading and most diverse futures and options exchange. CME Group's markets help individuals and businesses around the world effectively manage risk. For access to free educational tools and resources for the active individual trader, please visit activetrader.cmegroup.com.
Every day, traders and investors dive in to tackle the ever-changing markets to find opportunity. Futures Radio Show is your number one source for answers to the questions that all market participants want to ask. Veteran futures trader Anthony Crudele sits down with the most influential leaders and top traders in the industry. Now, here's your host, Anthony Crudele.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Futures Radio Show with Chairman and CEO of CME Group, Terry Duffy. Before I take you to the interview with Terry, I want to give a shout out to the great sponsors of Futures Radio Show: CME Group, Trading Technologies, RJO Futures, and Top Step Trader. Without further ado, let me take you right to the interview with Terry. Terry, thanks for joining me.
Hey Anthony, thank you for being here again. I sure appreciate it.
I love it. What's not great about being here at GFLC in Naples? So Terry, let's start off with NEX.
Yeah, sure.
How's this acquisition going to change the trajectory of CME Group?
You know, in multiple ways, Anthony. When you look at it, it'll be the only institution in the world that literally has a cash platform that complements the futures platform. You don't have another exchange that has that same type of format on its book. So you have the NEX products of BrokerTec, the NEX products of EBS, which are the cash U.S. Treasuries, and the cash foreign exchange, will be sitting side by side against the futures contract on the same platform. That is something you don't see. Now, there'll be obviously limitations to who can go and trade in what venue, but there is a tremendous amount of efficiencies that will come from that. And then obviously the compression services that NEX has built over the years. Michael Spencer has just done an amazing job of acquiring different firms. I mean, some assets that people had no idea how valuable they were, except Michael did. And I'm referring to TriOptima, Triana, things of that nature, TriResolve. So these are all platforms that are creating efficiencies for clients that we could also apply towards the futures markets, which we didn't have today. So the more efficiencies that you can create for your client, the better off your business model is going to be, no matter what business you're in, because you have to create efficiencies. That's what NEX and CME does together.
You mentioned Michael Spencer. How is your relationship with him?
Michael Spencer, my relationship with him is really good. Michael's a good human being. I like Michael a lot. I've known him for 20 plus years now. I admire what he's been able to do. He's the founder of ICAP going back to the late 80s. And, you know, I like people that create things, and Michael's been a creator and done a really good job in business. So I have a lot of admiration for Michael Spencer.
Terry, futures markets are growing around the globe. Yeah. Obviously, we're both very happy to hear that. Explain to everyone the importance of futures in financial markets.
I mean, it's almost indescribable when you think about futures and how much they have a part in everyone's daily life, and sometimes you don't even realize it. So when you're going shopping at the grocery store and you decide, you know, what's the value of a loaf of bread, what's the value of a gallon of milk, you go to the gas station, what's the value to fill up your car. Futures markets help offset those and mitigate the risk to the average consumer. Even though they don't trade futures, they're impacted in their everyday lives. You want to get a mortgage? Well, mortgage rates are set by a lot of derivative products that are meant there, be put there to help the banks give you loans at a better rate to mitigate their risk. And that's what futures markets does for every walk of life, up and down the spectrum, everything that touches your daily life. You don't need to trade the product, but I assure you, somehow, some way, you're a part of it.
Yeah, futures markets impact everybody. Terry, I want to move on and talk about Brexit. Is there any potential impacts coming from Brexit for CME clients?
You know, in all honesty, Anthony, no, because CME is a U.S. domiciled company, so Brexit doesn't touch CME. And as it relates to some of our products under the NEX transaction, you know, we are opening an office in Amsterdam to run the euro-denominated part of BrokerTec out of Amsterdam, so we'll be in the union for that business. But otherwise, no, it really doesn't have an impact. I think the impact is on all of us, it's uncertainty. When you have such a financial hub like London is, and not only for the former European Union, but London's a financial hub for the Asian community as well. That's how they do a lot of business in the union. So that's really where I think a lot of the disconnects are going to continue to be a problem for the participants around the world as they go through this process of Brexit, which will not be a hard date in March. It's going to take several years to go through this process. And I think by having former Prime Minister David Cameron here, tomorrow, you'll hear a lot more about what Brexit really means from him as a guy who's a former prime minister.
You talked about uncertainty. This is why it's great to have futures markets, right? So a couple of years ago, you and I talked about President Trump being elected, and we talked about the potential impacts on our industry. Are there any regulations or deregulations that the Trump administration has done that have impacted our industry?
No, there's been zero that have impacted our industry. There's been a lot to maybe impact the banking industry. So maybe in an off way, yes, it's touched us from the bank clients that use our markets from a regulatory process, but not directly. So when you look at Dodd-Frank and Title VII, Title VIII, and part of Title II, which affected the derivatives business, none of that's really been changed. And you'll hear from that from the commissioners of the CFTC today that are here. So all in all, I would say not much. I think what we've gotten in the United States is more regulatory certainty versus the not quite sure what the rules of the road are as you're implementing new legislation. So that's been the biggest changes, and he happens to be sitting in the office as most of that clarity has come on about us.
Terry, I really can't go a week without hearing about RegTech and its growth. It seems to have been massively impacting our industry, and in the better, in my opinion. What has CME done over the past year to help prevent bad behavior trading?
Well, listen, bad behavior is bad behavior, and it's not tolerated at any level at all. And one of the things that we've been doing, especially with our Asian clients, 30% of CME's revenue comes from outside the United States today, Anthony. That is up significantly over the years. So, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have Dodd-Frank around the world. It's a United States law. So when you look at EMIR 2.0, which is yet to be completely finished in Europe, Asia didn't change their regulation at all. So when you look at the way the markets are trading today, in what is deemed inappropriate behavior is, in one eye's beholder, is a way of trading. So we've been able to do, I've actually put people on the ground in Hong Kong from our regulatory department to help educate the participants, because I really don't believe anyone's trying to circumvent the process at all. Sometimes they just don't understand what the rules are in different countries. And since we're global markets, we're not a centric market, what you might be doing in one part of the world is acceptable under the law is not acceptable in the United States. What you may be doing in the United States might not be acceptable in Europe. So there are different rules, and we all need to know them because we have global markets today.
Yeah, I think it's so great to see these RegTech companies working with CME Group, working with the CFTC to get rid of this bad behavior trading. A year ago, you and I talked about the launch of Bitcoin futures. Mm-hmm. How's it going?
Listen, Anthony, I was hesitant on listing a Bitcoin futures contract, but at the same time, I looked at it in many different ways as a potential client acquisition. You look at the biggest population in the United States of America today, roughly 71 people are millennials. It's no longer the baby boomers. So these are the future CEOs, CFOs of the world coming down 10, 12, 15 years down the road. These are the products they know. So this is a good way to introduce them into the futures products today by listing some products that they have an interest in, such as cryptocurrencies and things of that nature. So to answer your question more directly, how is it going? It's not euro dollars. Yeah. It's not S&Ps. It's trading a couple thousand contracts a day. Everybody was begging for a volatility trade 3 years ago because the markets were stuck and everybody wanted to trade these cryptocurrencies because they were going from 0 to 19,000 and up and down. And if you looked at the value of cryptocurrency over the last year, it hasn't moved but a couple $100. So the volatility, since we've listed futures, has really gotten compressed. So, that's good in my opinion. That's what the futures markets did its job in the crypto world.
Is it trading enough to where you guys might add some options to Bitcoin futures?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
And what about the possibility or even consideration of adding additional crypto futures such as Ethereum?
And I'll answer that one even faster. Not yet.
Not yet.
Anthony, listen, I told the regulator when I listed these products, I am going to walk before I run here. I'm not just going to let them go wild and see how they do it. I wanted to make sure I was very clear that I did not want the average retail participant trading in this product. I have 47% margin set on cryptocurrencies. It's the highest of anybody that lists a product. And with the valuation, the day I listed at $19,500, at $6,500, I still have 47% margin because we've managed that risk all the way down in this market as the cryptos have declined. That's what's important. So I told the regulators I was going to be very cautious on this asset class. And I will call it an asset class. I'll call it a store of value. There's a whole host of things that I think it is. The question is, will it replace fiat currencies? And in my opinion, not for a long time, if at all.
So something that I've noticed is there's a lot of new Bitcoin or crypto futures exchanges popping up, more spot exchanges. Yeah. I want to know what you think about that. Is that good or bad for, let's say, crypto futures? And also, do you think this will dilute the liquidity for these products?
Yes and yes, I do. I think that it's good that people are trying to do it because competition, I've always invited competition, but I also believe in intellectual property, and you should not work for 170 years and someone walks in the next day and say, I want what you have, and not have to put the work in. I don't subscribe to that, but competition is good for all classes, including the crypto world, but I think a lot of them will fall by the wayside because, as you know, Anthony, in our world, liquidity begets liquidity. And I think if these products are to be successful, they'll probably find a home somewhere where there'll be a concentration pool of liquidity. And I'll give you an example. If you look at the U.S. Treasury market today, the U.S. Treasury, one of the largest markets in the world, CME traded 55% of the notional value of the U.S. Treasury market 5 years ago. Today, CME has 111% of the notional value of trade in the U.S. debt market. That is a huge percentage because the pools of liquidity are finding each other. I think that will be not too dissimilar in cryptos as it continues to evolve.
Let's stay on Bitcoin futures for a second. A lot of these new futures exchanges are going the physically delivered route versus the CME's contract of cash settled. What do you think about that?
Well, for me, it was a no-brainer decision. I had to go cash settled. We listed this contract a year and a half ago. I was very concerned about how we make or take delivery. I didn't want to have defaults on a delivery mechanism. So when we do delivery of corn, wheat, soybeans, and other products, it's fairly easy, right? They're on the Illinois River, we know the product's there. But when you're talking about something virtual and having to make or take delivery, for me, it seemed a little bit where you could have an impending default on the delivery mechanism, which concerned me. So anytime you got a new class like this, I think you have to be very careful, and this was the most conservative approach. Now, if you ask me, do I think if this was off and rolling to the next world, where would it be? And you could do it, I think a deliverable product would ultimately be the solution.
What are CME's clients saying about Bitcoin futures? Just how about let's say the crypto space in general?
They're happy that we went forward with it, but at the same time, they are not, like I said earlier, the volume's not off the charts because we've seen volatility come back in the main products, which is really what they know to trade best. So the people that were craving the crypto world are now back trading what they were trading a couple of years ago, which is oil, S&Ps, and interest rate products because of the movement we've seen in them.
Yeah. A lot of talk of crypto today, Terry, but I want to talk about blockchain because this is something that I think that is really going to impact our industry going forward. Is CME using any blockchain technology?
No, not yet. But we're using other technologies to create efficiencies. So when you look at the purest form of blockchain, is it going to be successful in the financial services without a virtual currency associated with it? I believe yes. And when you look at the blockchain technology, will it be successful outside of financial services? That's where I think the real winner is. The medical field, the medical records, things of that nature to really preserve and get access to people's medical records for the doctors around the world. That's where I think blockchain's efficiencies will really shine before they'll shine in financial services, believe it or not.
Gotcha. So you're a trader at heart, Terry.
Yep.
I mean, that's where I met you originally on the trading floors way back when.
You're not that old.
No, I'm not that old, right? But let's talk about some of the markets that you're watching these days.
Well, I have my eye on a lot of different markets because I believe that I cannot come to an event like this that we're sponsoring with some of the biggest clients we have around the world and not have an idea where the markets are at. So I actually tell everybody that works for me, everybody should know where the markets are at every single day. I'm not saying you have to know where November beans are, but you should have a really good idea where the equity market's at. You should have a really good idea where the oil's at. And you should have a really good idea where metals and interest rates are trading at. That's all you need to know. And that way you can deal with your clients a lot better by having some kind of knowledge of the markets. So those are kind of the four main asset classes that I kind of keep my eye on a daily basis, just to see what they're doing, because that way I can get a better pulse from my clients.
All right, Terry, we have some rapid fire questions if you're ready for those.
I'm ready.
All right, everyone, our rapid fire segment is sponsored by Trading Technologies. You can trade the global markets from virtually anywhere with TT. They are the world's fastest commercially available futures trading platform. And now you can trade cryptocurrency and derivative markets side by side. For more information, please visit tradingtechnologies.com. Terry, first question for you.
Yep.
What trader has influenced your life the most and why?
Vincent J. Schreiber is the gentleman. He has since passed away, one of the nicest human beings I ever met in my entire life. He had a lot of faith in me when I was a young 19, 20-year-old where I met him. He was very successful. He retired early, but he never forgot where he came from. And that's what influenced me the most. Vince came from nothing, made his way to somebody, and that's something I will never, ever forget. And that's why I never forget where I came from, never will. And he was the one that taught me great discipline at a young age. I had a very bad trading incident when I first started, and I thought Vince was going to write me a check. He says, I'm not going to write you a check, I'm going to give you my reputation. And if you walk away, I'll pay it, but you're not going to walk away. And it taught me, what he did it for was to teach me discipline at a young age. So he had the biggest impact on my life. I think of him almost on a daily basis still today.
He's a true legend, Terry. What was one of the hardest things for you to overcome in trading?
Saying you're wrong. You know, it's for any trader to admit they're wrong, it's just not natural. So you have to blame everybody else. And I think being in a situation early in my career where I had these issues, where I had lost money, and I had to say, listen, the market is bigger than any one individual. And as long as you can admit that you're wrong, you'll get much farther ahead. But most traders say, I'm not wrong, the market's wrong. I'm not wrong, my timing's wrong. I'm not wrong, that's the problem. Well, if you lost money, you're wrong, is the way I look at it. So I think that's it, admitting when you're wrong.
Throughout your long career as a trader, Terry, how did your trading process evolve?
You know, it evolved really from very humble. I leased a membership when I was 21 years old, started trading a couple of small ones and twos, got into the customer business because somebody was busy back then. They asked me to help them out for a day. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I said, I'll help. And that went to the next step, and then I started to develop a large client business and a following out of New York and Chicago with the big books of business. And you know, that's how I built my business over the 23-year span that I did it for before I took over as chairman, then eventually CEO as well.
What is one attribute that you believe every trader should have?
Discipline. Discipline, discipline, discipline. Anthony, it sounds cliche, but if you can sit there and literally be honest with yourself and not let a machine tell you what you're doing or not doing, right or wrong, and have a little discipline, I think you'll be wildly successful in the long run. And there's never, if you're a short-term, near-term thinker, you might make money one day, you might make money 2 days, but eventually you will lose. So you have to have a long horizon about how you want to have your career going, whether you're in any field of, whether it's medicine or anything else. But in financial services, I think people get very short-sighted and they want instant gratification. And that's the world we live in today. So you have to have a view for the long haul. So that's what I would think that would be helpful to traders.
Favorite book you've read lately?
Is Bob Woodward here yet? I can't wait to read that book. So lately, my books that I read are far and few between because I have to read anywhere between 20 and 100 pages a day of reports. So I read a book a day, except a lot of them don't have good endings.
What's the best advice that you've received about trading?
Best advice I ever received about trading was somebody sent me to talk to somebody in 1987, and he was a legendary trader when I was in a bit of a rut. You know, I had money, but it was a bit of a rut. And the best advice I got was sit down and listen to this gentleman for an hour, and they said that in that hour, there'll be 1 minute of brilliance. It's up for you to figure out where the 1 minute comes from. So I sat there for an hour, listened to this gentleman, and I didn't hear much of anything, so I went back to my friend and I said, you know, I didn't get the 1 minute of brilliance. He goes, you didn't hear the 1 minute of brilliance? I said, no. He says, you know what, you did get it. I go, how did I get it? He goes, you became a better listener than a talker.
That's great. Terry, if you can go back in time and give the younger you a piece of advice, what would it be?
The younger people a piece of advice?
No, if you can go back in time and give the younger you a
younger
piece of
me?
advice, what would it be?
Probably lighten up on the tattoos. Let's see. No, teasing. Younger me, a bit of advice: take a little better care of yourself when you're younger, because it's amazing. You never think you're going to get older. When you're in your 20s and you're bulletproof and you're trading, you think nothing's, and then all of a sudden you're 60. Enjoy it. I would tell a younger Terry, enjoy life more than you have. But I've always been nose down, hard, and going. I would tell myself to lighten up a little bit.
Last question for today, Terry. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Be with my wife and kids.
Terry, this was great. Thank you so much for joining me on Futures Radio
Appreciate
Show.
it very much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Futures Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for myself or my guests, please visit futuresradioshow.com and sign up to be a premium member for free. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes.